Ambassador Kyle Harrison stood in the Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Union. His hands gripped the edges of the podium as he listened to yet another accusation. The alien delegate's voice echoed through the massive hall, filled with contempt that Kyle had heard too many times before. 300 years. That was how long humanity had been part of the Galactic Union. 300 years of following rules that seemed designed to keep humans in their place. 300 years of swallowing insults and accepting unfair treatment. 300 years of being told they were too young, too primitive, too aggressive to deserve the same rights as the older species. High Counselor Vexile pointed one of his sharp appendages at Kyle. The Xentheran leader faceplates clicked together in anger. His species had ruled the galactic core for 10,000 years. They viewed humans the way a king might view a beggar at his gates. Your species continues to expand without proper authorization. The mining operation in the Denub sector must cease immediately. That territory belongs to the Kavarian Collective by ancient right. Kyle felt his jaw tighten. The Denub sector had been empty when human survey teams found it 20 years ago. Empty. No settlements, no claimed territory, no signs of any species living there for thousands of years. Humanity had followed every single rule in the Union Charter. They had filed proper claims. They had paid the enormous fees. They had waited through years of bureaucratic delays. Everything had been approved by this very council, and now the Kavarians wanted it. So the rules changed just like that. High Counselor, with respect, humanity followed every protocol. The Dem claim was filed properly and approved by this council. We have invested billions of credits into developing that region. Thousands of our people have worked for years to build that mining station. Vexel's mandibles clicked in what Kyle had learned to recognize as dismissive laughter. The decision is final, Ambassador Harrison. Your species will comply with this order within one standard week or face economic sanctions. Again? Again! The word hit Kyle like a physical blow. This would be the 7th time in 30 years that the Union had sanctioned humanity for some made-up violation of rules that other species broke daily without consequence. Trade restrictions that crippled human merchants. Asset seizures that bankrupted human companies, all perfectly legal under Union law, which the founding species could change whenever they wanted. Kyle's earpiece buzzed softly. His aide, Peter Grant, spoke urgently from the small office where the human delegation monitored communications. Ambassador, we have an emergency transmission from Commander Linda Price. The UES Defiant is responding to a distress call from the Denby mining station. What kind of distress? Kyle kept his voice low, turning slightly away from the podium. Peter's voice shook. Kavarian warships opened fire without warning. The station is taking heavy damage, multiple hull breaches. They're reporting casualties. Kyle's blood ran cold. How many? There was a pause. When Peter spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. 73 confirmed dead so far. The station is venting atmosphere. They're trying to evacuate, but the Kavarians are targeting the escape pods. 73 people, miners, engineers, scientists, families, people who had left Earth and Mars and the Belt colonies to build something new on the edge of human space. Dead because they were in the way. Dead because some alien empire decided they wanted what humanity had built. Kyle looked up at the council chamber. The delegates were chatting among themselves now, clearly bored with the routine humiliation of the human representative. High Counselor Vextel was being congratulated by several other delegates. The Kavarian ambassador had a smug expression on his face. They knew. They had to know. This attack had been planned. The council meeting was just theater, a way to make it look like humanity had been given a chance to comply before the Kavarians took what they wanted by force. Kyle reached down and closed his briefcase with a soft click. The sound seemed to echo in the vast chamber, drawing the attention of nearby delegates. He picked up the case and turned toward the exit. "Ambassador Harrison, where are you going?" Peter appeared at his elbow, confusion and fear on his young face. "The session isn't over. If you leave now, they'll charge you with contempt of council. The fines alone could bankrupt our entire diplomatic budget." Kyle kept walking. Behind him, he heard Vexel's voice rising in anger. "Ambassador Harrison, you have not been dismissed from this session. Return to your position immediately or face serious consequences." Kyle stopped at the massive doors that led out of the chamber. He turned slowly, looking back at the assembled delegates. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of species, all of them citizens of the great Galactic Union, all of them complicit in 3 centuries of treating humanity like dirt. "High Counselor Vexdale," Kyle said, his voice carrying clearly through the suddenly silent chamber. "For 300 years, my people have tried to be good members of the Union. We have followed your rules, even when those rules change to disadvantage us. We have accepted your insults, your sanctions, your theft of our property. We have been patient beyond all reasonable measure." He paused, letting his words sink in. Every delegate in the chamber was watching now. "But while you were holding the session, Kavarian warships attacked our mining station in the Denub sector. 73 civilians are dead. Families, counselor, people who never hurt anyone, who just wanted to build a better life." Vexel's mandibles clicked impatiently. "That is an internal security matter. The Kavarians were enforcing their legitimate territorial claim. Any casualties are regrettable, but legal under Union Charter Section 47, subsection 12. Legal," Kyle repeated softly. "You murdered 73 of my people, and it's legal. Ambassador, I warn you, your tone is unacceptable. You will moderate your language and return to your position, or humanity will face the most severe sanctions this council can impose." Kyle felt something break inside him. 300 years of pressure, 300 years of swallowed anger, 300 years of diplomatic patience that had bought humanity nothing but contempt. It all came to a point in this moment, standing in this chamber, looking at these aliens who thought humans would take this abuse forever. "High Counselor," Kyle said clearly, "you can take your sanctions, your Union Charter, and your contempt charges, and you can throw them into the nearest star. Humanity is done playing by your rigged rules." The chamber exploded in shocked outrage. Delegates jumped to their feet, shouting protest in a dozen different languages. Fexel's faceplates turned a dark purple that Kyle knew indicated rage. Kyle didn't wait to hear what they had to say. He turned and walked through the doors, which sealed behind him with a heavy thud. Peter scrambled after him, practically running to keep up as Kyle strode down the corridor toward the human embassy shuttle. "Kyle, what have you done?" Peter gasped. "They'll expel us from the Union. They'll blockade Earth. They'll destroy our economy. They've been destroying our economy for 3 centuries, Kyle replied. The only difference now is that we're not going to let them anymore. He activated his secure communicator, connecting directly to Earth's Central Command. This is Ambassador Harrison. Authorization code Alpha 779er. I need to speak with President Santos immediately. Priority Alpha. The connection took only seconds. President Maria Santos appeared on his screen, her face grave. Kyle, we just received word about the Denub attack. Are you safe? I'm safe, Madam President. But I've just walked out of the Union Council chamber after telling them that humanity is. There was a long pause. Then Maria nodded slowly. I've been waiting for this moment for 30 years. I was starting to think it would never come. Madam President, recall all human ambassadors from Union worlds, effective immediately. And Kyle, she smiled grimly, tell Admiral Brooks that Operation Sledgehammer is authorized. Humanity's patience has finally run out. Kyle felt his heart racing. Operation Sledgehammer. Every human in the diplomatic service knew about it, though few knew the details. It was the contingency plan for if the Union ever pushed too far. The plan that had been refined and updated for over a century, waiting for the day when patience was no longer enough. Understood, Madam President. What about evacuation of human civilians in Union space already underway? We started moving people 6 hours ago when we got word the Kavarians were moving warships toward Denub. By this time tomorrow, every human civilian will be out of potential combat zones. 6 hours ago, before the council session even started, the attack on Denub hadn't been a surprise to Earth's government. They had known it was coming and had been preparing for this moment. Kyle looked out the shuttle window as it lifted off from the Union Capital Station. Below, he could see the massive structure that housed the government of the galaxy, a government that had ruled for thousands of years with unchallenged authority. In 72 hours, that government would be shattered. The galaxy would learn that humanity's patience, while vast, was not infinite. And when it finally snapped, the sound would echo across 1,000 star systems. The war was coming, and humanity was ready. You are insane. No single species can fight the entire Union. Then I suggest you study that tactical data very carefully, Counselor, because what you just saw was a small demonstration. Humanity has been preparing for this day for 3 centuries. We hoped we would never need to use what we built. But you pushed us too far. Her voice hardened. We gave you patience. We gave you diplomacy. We gave you 300 years of peace. And in return, you gave us contempt and murder. Now you'll get something different. Now you'll get war. She cut the connection before he could respond. The bridge remained silent for a long moment. Nicole spoke quietly. Admiral, that was broadcast on open channels. Every species in the galaxy heard that conversation. Good, Helen replied. Let them hear. Let them see the tactical data. Let them do the math. SM Admiral Helen Brookie stood on the bridge of the UEES Vengeance and watched the stars on the main view screen.
Around her ship, 37 other warships hung in perfect formation. To anyone observing from a distance, they looked like a standard defensive fleet. Nothing special, nothing threatening. That was the point. For 300 years, humanity had been very careful about what technology they showed to the galaxy. The Union had seen human merchant vessels with basic engines and light defensive weapons. They had seen patrol craft that guarded human colonies. They had seen the orbital platforms that protected Earth and Mars. What they had not seen were the shipyards hidden deep in the
asteroid belt.
the weapons research facilities buried under the surface of Europa, the training grounds scattered across uninhabited systems that no one else wanted. For 3 centuries, while humanity played the role of the weak newcomer, they had been preparing for this day. Lieutenant Danny Morris looked up from his tactical station. He was young, barely 30, but he had trained his entire life for this mission. Admiral sensors are picking up the Kavarian fleet. 17 battle cruisers, 43 destroyers, and support vessels. They're holding position around the Denub Station debris field. Helen nodded slowly. The Kavarian Third Fleet was their entire military strength in this sector. They had sent everything they had to secure their prize, expecting no resistance. According to intercepted communications, they were celebrating, boasting about how easily they had swept aside the human presence, laughing about the 73 dead civilians. Captain Nicole Turner sent the message on all Kavarian frequencies. Nicole's fingers moved across her console. Within seconds, every Kavarian warship received the same message in their own language. This is Admiral Helen Brooks of the United Earth Space Forces. You have 1 hour to power down your weapons, surrender your vessels, and prepare to face justice for the murder of 73 civilians. This is your only warning. They clearly intended to make an example of the outnumbered human force. Their battle cruisers moved to the front, energy shields powering up. Their destroyers spread out in a wide arc, preparing to envelope and destroy the human ships. Helen watched their movements with professional interest. It was a textbook formation for overwhelming a smaller force. It would have worked against any other species in the galaxy, but the Kavarians were about to discover that humanity played by different rules. 60 seconds to deadline, Danny reported. Helen raised her hand. Every officer on the bridge was silent, waiting. The seconds ticked down. 50, 40, 20, 10. All ships, Helen said quietly. Open fire. The Vengeance's main railguns fired. First, unlike energy weapons that the Galaxy used, railguns fired solid projectiles, tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons, accelerated to a significant fraction of the speed of light. The kinetic energy they carried was enormous. The Kavarian shields were designed to deflect energy beams and absorb missile impacts. They were excellent shields, among the best in the galaxy, but they were not designed for kinetic impactors traveling at relativistic speeds. Physics didn't care about shield technology. Kinetic energy was kinetic energy. The first tungsten rod hit the Kavarian flagship's shield. For a fraction of a second, the shield held. Then it overloaded, the generators unable to handle the massive energy transfer. The second rod hit the ship itself. There was no dramatic explosion like in the entertainment videos. The battle cruiser simply came apart. The kinetic impact transferred so much energy into the ship structure that it tore apart at the molecular level. One moment there was a massive warship. The next moment there was an expanding cloud of debris. Across the human formation, every warship opened fire. The galaxy had never seen weapons like these. Railguns that could punch through any shield. Directed nuclear pulse drives that turned fusion bombs into focused weapons. Plasma lances that could slice through armor like a hot knife through butter. Missile swarms guided by artificial intelligence that could think faster than any organic mind. The Kavarians tried to fight back. Their energy weapons lashed out at the human ships, but human shields were designed specifically to handle directed energy. Their missiles launched in waves, but human point defense systems tracked and destroyed them with cold efficiency. Their fighters swarmed out to attack, but human combat drones met them in clouds of automated death. The Battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the Kavarian Third Fleet had ceased to exist as a fighting force. 16. Battle cruisers were destroyed or crippled. 40 destroyers were drifting hulks. Support vessels were scattered across the system, their crews evacuating in panic. The human fleet had taken damage. 3 ships reported minor hull breaches from lucky hits. 2 had shield generators running hot, but there were no casualties. Not one human death. Helen stood motionless, watching the tactical display. Around her, the bridge crew was silent. They had just participated in the most one-sided battle in galactic history. A fleet 1/3 the size of their enemy had completely destroyed that enemy in 11 minutes. Begin rescue operations, Helen ordered. I want every survivor picked. Medical teams ready to treat wounded. Anyone who surrenders is to be treated well. They're prisoners of war. Now, not enemies. Danny looked up from his console, his face pale. Admiral, we're receiving hundreds of priority transmissions from Union worlds. They're all demanding that we stand down immediately and submit to Union authority. High Counselor Vextel himself is on the line demanding to speak with you. Put him through. Audio only. Vexel's voice filled the bridge shrill with anger. Admiral Brooks, you have committed an act of war against a Union member species. You will cease all hostile actions immediately and surrender your fleet for internment. Failure to comply will result in the complete economic and military destruction of humanity. Helen smiled grimly. Hi, Counselor Vexel. I have a better idea. You will review the tactical data from this engagement. Every Union military in the galaxy will study exactly what just happened here, and then you will understand that humanity is no longer accepting your abuse. You dare threaten this council? You are one species against hundreds. The combined might of the Union will crush you like the primitive insects you are. Then let me make this very simple, Counselor. Humanity demands full restitution for every crime committed against our people over the past 300 years. We demand equal representation in the Union. We demand fair treatment under Union law. We demand justice for the 73 civilians murdered at Denub Station. She paused. You have 48 hours to agree to negotiations. After that, humanity will begin military operations against every Union species that participated in our oppression. High Counselor Vexel had ruled the Galactic Union for 43 years. He had managed wars, negotiated treaties, and maintained the delicate balance of power between hundreds of species. He considered himself a master of galactic politics, but as he watched the tactical data from the Battle of Denb for the 5th time, he finally admitted something to himself. He had made a terrible mistake. The Kavarian Third Fleet had been destroyed in 11 minutes. Not defeated, not driven back, completely destroyed by a force 1/3 its size. The tactical analysts were unanimous in their assessment. If humanity could do this to the Kavarians, they could do it to anyone. But Vextel was the leader of an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years. He could not be seen as weak. He could not let a young species dictate terms to the Union. So he did what any proud leader would do when faced with a threat to his authority. He assembled a coalition fleet, over 300 warships from 7 different species. It was the largest military force the Union had mobilized in recorded history. Surely, he thought, even humanity's advanced weapons could not stand against such overwhelming numbers. What High Counselor Vexel did not know was that humanity had been listening to Union communications for decades. Every command frequency, every tactical channel, every strategic planning session. Human intelligence had recorded it all, analyzed it, and filed it away for exactly this scenario.
Colonel.
Stephen Blake sat in the command center of Forward Operating Base Liberty, a human military installation that the Union did not know existed. He watched the coalition fleet gathering at the edge of human space. 300 ships. Should have been terrifying. Instead, he felt almost sorry for them. Status report, Stephen said calmly. Chief, Warrant Officer Lisa Kane looked up from her console. We have access to 47% of their fleet systems. Command and control networks are compromised. Navigation computers have our backdoor installed. Weapons targeting systems are vulnerable. Communication networks are wide open. Stephen nodded. For years, human technology companies had been selling software and hardware upgrades to Union species. Better efficiency, they claimed, improved compatibility with galactic networks. What they had actually been doing was installing access points for human intelligence services, every navigation system that promised faster calculations, every targeting computer that offered better accuracy, every communication upgrade that provided clearer signals. All of them had hidden pathways that led straight back to human military intelligence. The Union species had bought these upgrades eagerly. They thought they were getting advanced technology from the primitive humans at bargain prices. They never suspected they were buying their own defeat. The coalition fleet is moving into attack formation, Lisa reported. They're planning to hit our defensive positions in the Titan sector. Standard, overwhelming force doctrine. They expect to smash through our lines with sheer numbers. Execute chaos protocol, Stephen ordered. Lisa's fingers danced across her keyboard. Across 300 warships, computer systems began receiving false data. Navigation systems suddenly reported positions that were thousands of kilometers off. Ships that thought they were in formation were actually scattered across a huge volume of space. Weapons targeting computers locked up, displaying error messages that made no sense. Missiles that should have launched sat uselessly in their tubes while the firing systems tried to figure out what was wrong. Energy weapons powered down unexpectedly. Their safety systems convinced there was a malfunction. Communication networks began broadcasting conflicting orders. Zenthran ships received messages telling them to break left. Messages that looked legitimate came from verified command channels but were completely false. Talarian vessels got orders to hold position when they should have been advancing. Most devastating of all, ship identification systems started showing friendly vessels as hostile contacts. 2 Zenthran destroyers, convinced they were under attack by enemy ships, opened fire on their own support vessels. The support ships, confused and panicking, returned fire. Within 10 minutes, the coalition fleet had descended into complete chaos. Ships collided as their navigation systems fed them bad data. Friendly fire incidents erupted throughout the formation. Taurian battlecruiser's fusion reactor entered emergency shutdown when its safety systems received false warnings about critical overheating. Into this confusion came Admiral Helen Brooks and her fleet. They emerged from jump space with perfect coordination, their systems immune to the electronic warfare that was crippling the coalition. Human ships moved like a single organism, executing maneuvers that required split-second timing. The battle was less of a fight and more of a systematic dismantling. Human forces targeted propulsion systems, first leaving enemy ships drifting and helpless. Then they knocked out weapons arrays, then communications. They disabled rather than destroyed when possible. Helen wanted prisoners. She wanted witnesses. She wanted survivors who could return to their home worlds and tell everyone exactly what happened when you pushed humanity too far. The coalition tried to fight back, but they were fighting blind. Their sensors showed targets that weren't there. Their weapons aimed at ghosts. Their communications were full of false orders and conflicting information. It was like trying to fight in a dark room while someone kept turning you in circles. By the end of Day 2, over 100 Union ships had been disabled and their crews evacuated to human vessels. The remaining ships scattered, running for their home systems in blind panic. Some jumped to random coordinates just to get away. Others broadcast surrender messages on every channel, begging to be taken prisoner rather than destroyed. In the capital stations of a dozen species, military commanders watched the disaster unfold. They had sent their best fleets, They had assembled overwhelming force, and humanity had torn through them like they were nothing. On day 3, the political situation began to shift dramatically. The Terranian Dominion had always been the most practical of the Union species. They were traders and businesspeople, not warriors. They had joined the coalition because refusing would have made them look weak. But after watching 2 human victories in as many days, they decided that survival was more important than appearance. Ambassador Prime Kreltos sent a secret message to Earth. The message was simple. The Terrians wanted out. They would declare neutrality, refuse to participate in any further military action against humanity, and open direct trade negotiations. In exchange, human forces would not target systems. President Maria Santos. Read the message in her office in Geneva. Foreign Minister Gregory Hayes stood beside her, analyzing the implications. 3 days ago, they were voting to sanction us, Maria observed. Now they want to be neutral. Fear is an excellent motivator. Madam President, they've done the math. If we can destroy a coalition fleet this easily, we can certainly handle them individually. Gregory paused. Intelligence suggests 3 other species are considering similar approaches. The Denari Collective, the Orion Alliance, the Centauri Confederation. Maria walked to her window and looked out at the city below. Somewhere above, human warships were fighting the largest war in their history. Young people were risking their lives to prove a point that should never have needed proving. That humanity deserved basic respect. Accept the Terran offer, she decided, and reach out to those other species. Let them know we're willing to talk. We're not fighting this war to conquer the galaxy. We're fighting it so we never have to fight again. Gregory nodded and left to begin the diplomatic outreach. Maria remained at the window for a long time, thinking about the galaxy that was being born in. These 3 days of war. For 300 years, the Union had been built on a foundation of inequality. Some species were senior members with full rights. Others were junior members with limited say, and at the bottom were species like humanity, allowed to participate but never truly equal. That galaxy was dying. In its place, something new was emerging. A galaxy where species negotiated because they wanted to, not because they were forced to. Where military might was respected but not worshipped. Where a small fleet could defeat a massive one through superior strategy and technology. High Counselor Vexel watched the coalition fleet retreat in disorder. His mandibles clicked in frustration and growing fear. He had ruled the Union for over 4 decades. He had thought he understood power, but humanity was teaching him a lesson he had somehow missed in all those years. Power without respect was just violence waiting to happen. And respect could not be demanded. It had to be earned or taken. Humanity had spent 300 years trying to earn it, 3 days taking it by force. And now the entire galaxy was scrambling to figure out what came next. Vexel looked at the reports piling up on his desk. Military defeats, political defections, economic disruption. In 3 days, the Union he had spent his entire life serving was falling apart. And it was his fault. He had pushed the humans too far. He had assumed their patience meant weakness. He had been catastrophically wrong. Now he faced a choice. Keep fighting a war. He could not win and watch his empire burn or negotiate with the species he had spent decades treating as inferior. Pride versus survival. He looked at the tactical display showing human fleet positions. The Zentheran Empire had existed for 10,000 years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had survived wars, plagues, and political upheavals that would have destroyed lesser species. They were the senior members of the Galactic Union, the ones who set the rules that everyone else followed. High Counselor Vextel understood that his empire's survival depended on maintaining that authority. When species challenged the Union, they had to be put down firmly, not cruelly, but definitely show weakness once, and 100 other species would test those same boundaries. So, when humanity destroyed the coalition fleet, Beakstel made a decision. He would not negotiate. He would not show weakness. He would mobilize the Grand Armada and crush humanity so thoroughly that no species would ever dare challenge the Union again. Over 800 warships began converging on the Sol system. The Grand Armada was the pride of Theran military power. It had never been defeated in battle. It had broken rebellions, conquered aggressors, and enforced Union law across the galaxy for thousands of years. The plan was simple and brutal. Destroy Earth's orbital infrastructure, blockade the planet, force humanity to surrender unconditionally, make an example so severe that it would echo through galactic history for the next 10,000 years. What High Counselor Vexel did not understand was that the Sol system was not like other systems. For 300 years, while humanity played the role of the weak newcomer, they had been turning their home system into a fortress. Every asteroid in the belt had been mapped, hollowed out and filled with weapons or sensors. Every moon held hidden platforms. Even the rings of Saturn concealed automated defenses. The entire system was one massive interlocking network of death. General Victor Ross commanded Earth's home defense forces from deep inside the Cheyenne Mountain complex. He watched the Grand Armada approach on displays that showed every ship, every formation, every energy signature. Human sensors were very good at finding things that tried to stay hidden. Major Clarier Wright stood beside him, studying the tactical plot. They're coming in tight formation. Classic overwhelming force doctrine. They want to smash through our defenses before we can coordinate a response. Victor smiled coldly. Let them get comfortable. Wait until they cross the Saturn perimeter. Then we spring the trap. The Grand Armada swept past Saturn, their commanders confident. They had 800 ships. The humans had maybe 50 in the entire system, and most of those were defending Earth itself. The math was simple. Overwhelming force always won. Except the math was wrong because they never noticed the thousands of small objects detaching from Saturn's rings. Small objects that accelerated toward the fleet on chemical thrusters that produced almost no heat signature. Objects that were individually too small to register as threats on Zenthran sensors. Smart minds active. Claire reported. Contact in 30 seconds. The Zentherians detected the incoming swarm too late. Thousands of self-guided minds, each one a small nuclear device, slammed into the tightly packed formation. The nuclear pulses were not designed to destroy ships through blast. They were designed to generate electromagnetic pulses that fried electronics and blinded sensors. Across the Grand Armada, ships went dark. Sensors failed. Communication systems crashed. Weapons targeting computers rebooted for 90 seconds. The most powerful military force in the galaxy was blind, deaf, and helpless. And 90 seconds was more than enough time for Phase 2. From hidden positions throughout the outer system, hundreds of missile batteries opened fire. The missiles were simple by galactic standards, just fusion drives strapped to heavy warheads. But there were thousands of them launched in coordinated volleys that converged on the blinded armada from every direction. Cynthian Point defense systems came back online and started shooting down missiles. But they were designed to handle hundreds of targets, not thousands. For every missile they destroyed, 3 more got through. Warheads detonated against shields that were still recovering from the electromagnetic pulse. Ships took damage. Armor cracked. Hull breaches spread. Then came the railguns, hidden on asteroids, on moons, and orbital platforms that looked like simple satellites. They had been there for decades waiting. Now they fired in coordinated volleys. Their targeting, data shared. Through quantum-encrypted networks, the Zentherians could not jam. Humanity's defense grid came alive. Each railgun shot was calculated with cold precision, striking weakened hulls and exposed systems at the perfect moment. For a century, Earth's computers had analyzed every Zenthran ship design, and now their knowledge turned the tide. The Grand Armada fired wildly, their targeting systems blinded. Missiles flew into nothingness while human minds closed escape routes. The Battle of Sol raged for 4 relentless hours. 4 hours of coordinated human fire tearing apart the largest fleet ever built. When silence fell, only 203 enemy ships limped away, retreating at full speed. General Victor Ross stood before the screens. "Begin rescue operations," he ordered. "Anyone who surrenders gets treated well." Humanity had lost 12 platforms and 3 lives, against 800 enemy warships. Victor felt the weight of those deaths but also the triumph of survival. They had defended Earth against impossible odds and proven a truth older than war itself. Patience and preparation could break empires. 5 days later, Admiral Helen Brooks took her fleet to the Zenthran homeworld. Not to conquer, but to deliver a message. With her came High Counselor Vexidal, rescued from his ruined flagship and treated by human doctors. As their ship orbited his ancient planet, Helen stood before him. "Your empire could have lasted another 10,000 years, she said quietly. "You lost it because you couldn't show one species basic respect." Vexidal's mandibles clicked slowly. "What does humanity want? Conquest? Revenge? Justice?" she replied. "And reform. The Galactic Union must be rebuilt with equality for all species." She displayed holograms of every defense, every weakness. "If you help us rebuild, the war ends. Refuse, and tomorrow we begin precision strikes." The High Counselor stared at the data and understood. Humanity had known how to destroy his empire for decades, yet they had waited, hoping for peace. Finally, with a sound that meant surrender, he clicked acceptance. "We will stand down," he said bitterly, "and help you rebuild what we destroyed." The war was over, but rebuilding would test them all. On the 6th day, Geneva became the heart of a new galaxy. Delegates from every major species filled the hall, summoned by fear and awe. President Maria Santos stood before them. "For 3 centuries we sought equality through peace," she said. "Every effort met contempt. In 6 days we proved we could have destroyed you all, but we chose not to. We wanted respect." The chamber fell silent. High Counselor Vexidal rose, scarred and humble. "We mistook patience for weakness," he said. "We were catastrophically wrong." Ambassador Kyle Harrison stepped forward. "The old union is finished. No more senior or junior species. Every world gets an equal voice." Some protested, others watched in silence. Maria's voice hardened. "Those who refuse may go their own way. But know this, humanity will defend every member who stands for peace." For 10 long hours, they drafted the reformed Galactic Union. Equal votes, shared defense, fair arbitration, a peacekeeping force composed of all species. Imperfect, but real. At last, the galaxy had something worth believing in again. As the treaty was signed beneath the fading light of Earth's sky, humanity stood not as conquerors but as builders of peace. Admiral Helen Brooks watched beside Commander Jack Phillips. 6 days to change the galaxy, he murmured. Helen nodded. 300 years of patience, then 6 days of action. That's who we are. Across the world, celebrations rose. Alien broadcasts echoed apologies, and colonies sent messages of hope. President Santos spoke to every world. Power without restraint breeds tyranny. We fought not to rule, but to ensure no one could rule us again. Our victory is not in fleets destroyed, but in equality achieved. Her words carried across the stars. We are done being patient with injustice, but endlessly patient with peace. Above, human warships powered down. The galaxy would remember the 6-day war not as conquest, but as rebirth. Decades later, a Zenthran professor would tell his students, "Patience is not weakness. The species you dismiss today may rebuild your world tomorrow." Humanity had proved mercy could be might.